I sustained those bastards on nothing but salty filth. They traded life for rest. Real meat was a myth. I expected violence, but their twitchy silence was worse. Is this the end? They rasped as sanity crumbled. Rumors swirled that I was fattening them for the knife. A week later, they trapped me, hunting for a victim. My silence became law. They swore fealty to me. They turned into zealots, dictating my clothes and fate. They offered a gold robe, begging me to stay. But the silk-head dragons a death warrant for me. Their worship killed me, despite my loyalty to the state. I never wanted power, but I wore the evidence. 30 months ago, they dumped me here with a crate. I thought that endless supply made me a king. At first, the thing gave only oily greens. I used to wonder if salt or hunger broke souls. A stranger's dark thought haunted my every waking hour. He said some grease in the broth buys a spirit. Give them hope. They will pave paths in gore. The mist cleared as Yang pointed to the ruins. The graveyard, he sighed, staring at the wreckage. The path vanished into a sea of bone dust. Seeing those crumbling walls filled me with pure dread. In this nightmare, a dying girl just hit the dirt. She pleaded for one bite just to stay alive. Then more sunken eyes emerged from the cold dark. A wall of human misery blocked every way out. They were shadows until a shout split the air. "Move for the boss," a man with steel barked. He carried the heavy stride of someone still in charge. I asked for the leader. He just laughed bitterly. "Nobody," he spat. "They fear steel, not a name." I didn't blink. I tossed him 2 survival packs. In that rot, I saw a spark of dangerous grit. "You did this," I said. "The power is yours. Feed them," I ordered while he stood there frozen. That simple trust shattered him more than any blade. A cry of hope ripped through the dark ruins. He carried 44 pounds of life against the grave. That was 2 days of mercy he didn't miss. He gave it to her, demanding absolute order now. "Boss Wu," she choked. "This is high-grade rice." He thought it was a dream until he saw grain. The fighter turned pale, staring at those edible jewels. He reached out, then flinched, ashamed of his filth. He flinched, terrified his grime would ruin my suit. "This for us?" he wheezed. I barked yes. Starting now, I am the one in charge. At sunrise, the pantries opened for the hungry. A massive roar erupted, shaking the dead dirt. I signaled silence, then faced the armed boy. "Who are you? Take me to the square." "Call me Six," he said. "Lead on, Six." In the center, my gut twisted into knots. Every side street was a graveyard of trash. They were ghosts, nothing left behind their eyes. Six started hollering to drown out the quiet. "The capital hasn't forgotten. Our hero's here. Bread for everyone tomorrow." The mood shifted instantly. Dead eyes caught fire as hope surged through. Raw, desperate longing. We stopped at a ruin. He yelled, "Chief, the big shot is here." A man in rags stepped out with thugs. The boss froze. "Six. Is this a joke?" "He's the real deal. Our only prayer now." The man collapsed, weeping like a broken child. "Thank God. We thought they'd abandoned us." I hauled him up, demanding the brutal truth. Just 6 months ago, this town was booming. 800 families gone, 2,000 barely living. They butchered the leaders. Corpses still hang there. That cold reality turned my blood to ice. He whispered, "When do the troops and crates arrive?" No way out. The facts were a death sentence. The nation was a carcass, stripped by insiders. The country was spiraling into total anarchy. Help wasn't coming. I laughed, feeling the bile. I had to kill their fantasy immediately. The suits in the capital aren't sending anything. Why do they still believe these fairy tales? My voice was low. The despair felt heavy. Each word hit hard, turning their skin gray. Hope died. I stepped up. "You won't rot. My private shipment arrives by 12 tomorrow. Food starts at exactly 12 noon tomorrow." They listened, but understand nothing comes for free. The walls are trash. Any gang could kill us. We build at dawn. Southgate is first. Age doesn't matter, everyone works or nobody eats. You sweat, you eat. No work, no plate. Nobody dared utter a single word of protest when I mapped out the strategy to save our crumbling walls. Deep down, they were starving for a miracle, even as they gambled on my certain failure. The locals all figured my talk of rations was just some fairy tale to keep them in line. I snapped at Chien, demanding he count every heartbeat left in this godforsaken, rotting county. I had to know who could actually read or who knew how to build something that wouldn't collapse. My orders were dead simple. Get those lists finished before we headed back to the command post. Back at the station, Chien went ghost white the second I brought up the grain silos. He tripped over his words, asking if I really expected to feed a city on thin air. He reminded me that the local militias had stripped the entire place bare months ago. I asked if his ears were broken, since I'd already said the shipment was landing tonight. I just needed a secure lockbox, so he led me toward the massive steel storage bins. I ordered Qian to snap the locks shut and hand the keys directly to Yang. The drivers would find him. Besides, Yang was the only man I still truly trusted. With the logistics set, Qian walked me down to inspect the wreckage by the harbor. We spent the whole afternoon scouting the edges until the pure horror of it all finally hit home. My first plan was to bleed the rich dry and give the land back to the people. But looking at the horizon, I saw there wasn't a single wealthy soul left to tax. Anyone with 2 cents to their name had ditched this war-torn hellhole a lifetime ago. It finally clicked why the universe had stuck me with such a pathetic hand to play. Without these rations, staying was a death sentence. By first light, we hit the main gates. My gut twisted at the sight, just a few broken men trailing behind old Lou. Maybe 20 people in that entire crowd looked strong enough to lift a single hammer. It made my skin crawl. I couldn't stop the bitter insults from leaking out under my breath. Do these idiots honestly think they're doing me a favor just by staying alive? When the wolves return, do they really think I'm the only target on the menu? Qian saw the fire in my eyes and rushed over to pull me back from the ledge. He begged me to realize that starving men don't give a damn about flags or big ideas. They haven't eaten in weeks. They'd rather rot in their beds than try to move. To them, starving in the dark feels safer than breaking their backs for another lie. That thought hit me like a physical blow, and I felt a sudden, stabbing guilt. I should have filled their stomachs before demanding they bleed for these worthless rocks. But explaining where tons of rice appeared from during a famine was a flat-out impossibility. I cursed my degrees, knowing 21st century logic meant nothing in this world of blood. Qian's voice cut the silence, asking me what the hell our next move was supposed to be. I swallowed my pride and told him to split the crowd into squads of 10. I needed a perfect head count because we were only feeding the people on the official list. Qian was a pro, getting 20 units into position before I could even blink. They stood in formation, but barely 10% looked like they could do a day's work. The morning was a total wash, but when the sun hit its peak, I gave the nod. I told the men to bring out the grain and make sure that stew was thick as mud. The townspeople waited with hollow bellies and eyes full of nothing but cold doubt. Every last one of them wondered if this meal was just some sick, twisted joke. Qian kept the line moving, ensuring only the registered workers got so much as a single scoop. They stood in their rows, gripping those empty bowls like they were made of solid gold. When the steam finally rose from the pots, the smell of rice hit them like a freight train. The thick scent of roasting beef hit the camp, freezing everyone instantly. Mouths watered, but the massive oak barrel I rolled forward stunned them. Dark broth spilled over, shimmering under a rich, golden glaze of fat. I opened my ledger and barked for them to form eating groups. No name on the list, no food. I won't tolerate any leeches. Gula's pack went first. He snatched a hot bowl, ignoring the heat. One frantic swallow later, the icy void in his gut began melting. Heat flooded him. This wasn't the watered-down trash the state usually served. Gula turned to his men and growled. "Listen up, you mangy dogs. The chief is serving premium grain reserved only for the ruling elite." The feast began. Moments later, a haunting silence smothered the entire camp. Hardened men suddenly broke down, wailing like children on the dusty earth. Years of starvation were vanishing. The relief was crushing. I watched, eating. To be honest, that chorus of sobbing was really testing my patience. I barked, "Stand up, eat more. Stop crying before people think I'm weak." Dead silence followed. Every single man just stared at me in shock. The offer sounded fake. They were actually being invited back for seconds. They traded looks, terrified they'd wake up face down in the dirt again. One bowl was a miracle. Hearing it was bottomless felt like heaven. A skeletal man dropped to his knees. "Sir, can I really have more?" I gave a sharp, silent nod and pointed toward the massive vats. Realizing I wasn't joking, the men charged, nearly crushing one another. They mobbed the barrels, inhaling stew as if death were coming tonight. I stood tall, my voice booming. "Stay loyal, and you'll never starve. But cross me once, and I'll ensure you never eat another scrap." Pity wasn't the goal. I was building a reputation for absolute power. 5 hostile armies surround us. Wooden fences won't stop that kind of war. Once these walls stand, I'll turn these workers into a lethal army. I needed soldiers. I was planning war when Pingyong dragged someone in. He was hauling a rat-faced little lowlife by the back of his neck. He threw him in the mud. "Pingyong," I asked, "what's his crime?" Pingyong bowed. "Master, I caught this parasite. He goes by the name Ba. He ditched his shift today just to sneak around the city center. He tried to hustle a meal. He deserves blood. The boy quivered. I kept my sword sheathed and ordered the guard to fetch 2 bowls. You're Bishung, right? You already ate. He collapsed, begging for his life. Master, please, I was starving. I only faked working to stay alive. I didn't even get 3 bites before they caught me. I failed. I'll work double, I smirked. How was the soup, Bung? He froze. He pressed his face into the dirt, shaking. It was incredible, sir. I leaned in, whispering like a ghost. This food isn't a gift. The next time you're that hungry, I murmured. The boy looked terrified. Sir, please mercy. I ignored him. I need walls and I need muscle. See these bowls? One's yours. Use the other to recruit more men. Bishung stared as if struck by lightning. Sir, you want me? Shout it from the rooftops. Break your back for this wall and you'll get a hot meal and a reason to wake up tomorrow. I locked that lie behind a sharp, practiced nod. He took a shaky breath, stunned by his own sudden turn of fortune. Wait, you're actually giving me a pass for yesterday's disaster, boss? A dry, empty laugh rattled my chest. Only if your crew numbers double before the sun hits the horizon tomorrow morning. Screw up again, and I'll dump you in the hole along with every secret you've ever tried to bury. This is your final shot. The man collapsed onto the pavement, sobbing in gratitude as his forehead struck the hard asphalt. I'm all in, sir. I won't just hit the quota. I'll flood this entire site with every available body in the city. A sharp, icy grin cut across my face. When dawn broke the next day, I was already patrolling the southern edge. Over 400 starving people had gathered by sunrise. A man named Bang ran up, hauling his wife along to claim the credit. He fell to his knees, gasping for air. Look, boss. I brought in exactly what you demanded for this job. I hit every back alley in town, swearing you're feeding us like kings. That's why they're all practically begging to get in. I even brought my own wife out to work the line. We're giving every ounce of sweat to see your vision through. Please, take us both. This wasn't some quick fix. We were pulling a massive fortress out of the mud. We built bigger and stronger than anyone imagined. Yesterday's 200 workers were just hollowed-out shadows barely clinging to life. They were starved, empty vessels with no strength left to lift a hammer or haul a single heavy stone. Work had totally stalled out. But today, the vibe changed. It wasn't just the muscle doing the heavy lifting anymore. I'd have recruited every stray dog in this town to close this deal. I waved Bang and his wife away dismissively. Identity doesn't matter to me. If you bleed for this structure, I'll make sure you're fed and paid. I snapped fresh orders at Tony Yong. The numbers are massive. Heat up the extra pots and double the food immediately. As he ran off, Pingyong blocked my path, his face a contorted mask of deep, ugly doubt. Sir, are we really wasting the premium grain on these drifters? I stared right through him. Is there a problem? He began to tremble, stuttering over his words. No, it's just. That's top-tier stock to be tossing away. Isn't this too much for peasants? I saw his play. He was a pencil pusher, fixated on the margins. He thought if we served them trash, our warehouse supplies would stretch twice as far. He was terrified of our reserves drying up. Truth is, I'd been waiting for someone to challenge me. This was my chance to own their souls forever. I let my voice thunder through the yard with absolute power. A beggar's life is worth a king's, I roared. Death makes us all equal the moment the soul leaves the body. Why do the rich get the silk? Were those big shots born wearing gold crowns on their heads? That one question hit Chiong like a sledgehammer, wrecking his entire perspective on the spot. I didn't stop there. Never feel worthless. To me, a single life is more valuable than the stars above. I just insulted the elite and told these workers they were more vital than the heavens themselves. The officer stood frozen and breathless, completely overwhelmed by the sheer weight of my claims. Pingyong believed the boss truly loved us. He vowed to serve me with every fiber of his being. I'll give him my soul. 7 days disappeared in a cloud of dust and grueling, bone-crushing labor. News of the hot food spread like wildfire. Young, old, or broken, it didn't matter. Everyone was desperate to join. The rush was unstoppable. If you had a pulse, you headed to the site to feed the beast. I didn't reject a single soul. They were all hungry to work themselves into the ground for a meal. I put the elderly to work in the kitchens. In this machine, no one was trash. Everyone had a job. Even the children were out hunting for materials. But I did more than just fill their empty stomachs. I put actual cash in their palms. Every 10 days, I distributed pay and heavy bags of grain. That white grain felt better than any prayer. It was the mark of our fresh start. Gratitude turned the town around. Everyone was out there, moving together like one giant, driven machine. The vibe was intense, totally new. Time blurred into one long day before I knew what hit me. I'd been leading this sector for 6 months, powered by the desperation of every single person here. After 6 months of grit and blood, those four massive walls finally towered over the landscape. All four sides were finished together, sealed by iron gates that finally locked us all inside. Staring up at that 30-foot wall of earth and stone, the dread in my gut finally eased. I've played tag with the Reaper too long, especially after 6 months of this haunting silence. My people bled for this, and honestly, it's a miracle the scavengers didn't slaughter us during construction. Yet, a dark thought lingered. Nothing is unbreakable if you hit it hard enough. We look invincible on paper, capable of holding off 20,000 seasoned soldiers. But the true threats from the north and east supposedly command 1,000,000 archers each. Perhaps those legends are just bedtime stories, but I'm not gambling our lives on a guess. 200,000 raiders would burn us to ash. I sighed, eyeing our pathetic defense force. We need recruits immediately. Now that we have walls, these folks actually have something worth protecting. Their bellies are full, but my days of playing savior for free are over. Charity ends today. Giving away food without effort only creates a town of cowards. It's simple. If they want to live, they need to learn how to kill. Later that day, I summoned every living soul to the square. Facing the crowd, I told them plainly that these rocks won't stop a motivated enemy. The Xiongnu are lurking in the northern plains. The Qiangi push from the west, while the Khitan circle us like predators. Ignore the nearby Imperial army. We're so broke we don't even have a single bow. Our entire arsenal is 30 rusty spears and absolutely zero armor. Starting now, I'm opening recruitment for the local militia. Enlistees get 3 square meals, 200 yen, and 30 jars of food every month. The moment I finished, the entire plaza erupted into total madness. They were floored. I was offering a life they had never even imagined. The promise of actual rice every single day hit them like a lightning strike. It wasn't just a line, it was a stampede to sign the ledger. A third of the population signed up instantly, every man who could lift a weapon. It felt surreal. I just traded some grain and pickles for a personal army. 8 weeks later, I had a disciplined line and 200 more in reserve. Next step. I had the brawn, but I needed cash to keep this machine running. I only had 17 silver pieces left, but my granaries were overflowing. This wasn't just greed. I planned to flip that rice for coin in the neighboring district. I tasked my most trusted lieutenant, Yang Shio, with the logistics. Shio loaded the wagons and cleared the stores to set out for the next city. The mission was clear: turn our surplus food into solid wealth. It took days to reach Pingyong, but those 10 wagons were worth a fortune. They returned with 3,000 silver coins shining in the crates. But Shio also brought warnings of a world descending into pure chaos. A lethal famine was choking the country. Yongha hadn't seen rain in 6 months. The sky was a furnace, scorching the fields and destroying half the crops. Shio shared the horrific rumors he'd gathered from the city slums. "Boss, rice prices were literally jumping every hour," he said. Greedy sellers were hiking prices constantly, content to watch the peasants starve. My eyes went cold. "Shio, tell me you didn't profit off those dying people." Shio knew where I stood. I have zero tolerance for blood-sucking opportunists. He dropped to his knees immediately, desperate to prove his hands were clean. "Sir, I'd never stain your name or touch a single penny of that tainted money." The sharks were circling my assets. I put on my best show of fake outrage. "You're missing the play, Shio," I barked. The window just slammed shut. "Finish them off," I said. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I was finally becoming the top predator in this concrete jungle. He hesitated for a second. I actually felt a twinge of pity. "Tell me, Shio, what's our biggest vulnerability? Is it the capital? The supply chain?" He guessed. I just shook my head in disappointment. "I'm drawing a blank, boss. Throw me a bone here." "Human souls," I whispered. "Cash is just paper when the world burns. We need leverage over lives." He looked like I was speaking Greek. "Why are we even bothering to help those corporate bloodsuckers? You need to start looking at the big picture for once. Our rivals hike their prices while we play the low-cost saviors. Eventually, the hungry and the desperate will come for our heads." The realization hit him hard. He finally saw the velvet trap. That executive greed is going to squeeze the working class dry. Word is spreading fast that our prices are rock bottom. Before long, the hopeless masses will be pounding on our doors. It's brilliant. You're not buying labor. You're poaching their very existence. Whole families will pack up their lives and follow our lead. Our worker shortage is going to be solved before sunrise. Shio went into the shadows and found us a back alley fixer. He recruited a kid named Ba, a street rat with nothing left. That boy wasn't just trouble, he was a walking powder keg. I was busy planting the seeds that would eventually level this city. We started handing out those miracle seeds to every desperate soul. 3,000-kilogram harvests? People absolutely lost their minds. They fell for the scam, hook, line, and sinker. I signed off on the massive relocation bonuses to get things moving. The deal was simple. Bring us fresh meat, and we'll feed you. New recruits get a 100-kilogram food bonus for signing on. Bring me a blacksmith, and I'll toss you a 10-kilogram finder's fee. Master craftsmen will net you a 200-kilogram payout. The middlemen take 30, but being able to read is the real ticket. Academics pay out 300. Recruiters take a 50-kilogram cut. Neighbors were already turning on each other for a quick payday. At first, families figured the letters were just part of a scam. Paradise in 12 months? It sounded like a total pipe dream. To them, we looked like a shimmering, golden hallucination on the horizon. With inflation through the roof, everyone was looking for an exit strategy. The local crowd finally started asking some serious questions. What's the harm in just going over there to check it out? That spark of curiosity spread through the crowd like an inferno. Then the letters started arriving from the people we'd already saved. We're living like royalty here. Get your bags and join us. Rice rumors spread fast. Pre-digital luck saved us. Speedier news meant panic. Letters seemed like fiction. Inflation killed the poor. Grain cost silver bars. Whispers of cheap food. Lies became literal lifelines. Starving crowds marched south. Bang was snacking, relaxed. Trucks late. Sun setting. Silent roads. No convoy. Bang sweated. Scout entered. He collapsed. Chief wheezed. Halls hijacked. Bang paled. Who'd touch our stash? When took hostages. 100-kilo ransom. Pay or they die. Local storage was dry. No resources. Sent SOS. Needed the big brass. Hideout. Throne of skins. Sia bowing radiated death. Yi bragged about raids. Sia's laugh shook walls. Perfect tip. Hit jackpot. 5 trucks. 10 hostages. 7 days. Grain ransom. Local wolves beat giants. Didn't care about rice. My bloodline calls shots. Just finished my dinner. Villagers hunted bird meat. Tough meat. Incredible broth. 3rd helpings. Packing up. Teaching locals to write. Pingyong burst in. Emergency. Jumped up, fearing hitmen. Gangs coming for me. Shipment. Stolen, he wheezed. Pulse leveled. No war. Relief turned to dread. Bishing's message was frantic. Gut twisted. No guards. Chen buckled like a piece of cheap scrap metal. We thrived on growth. Those last 2 runs went perfectly. Success made Chen arrogant enough to swap guards for builders. He stammered through his failure. I snapped over those towers. I can respect a steal gamble, but this was insanity. A housing project? My blood froze as he hit the floor. He pleaded for mercy, dismissing the catastrophe as a glitch. I grinned. Was some grain worth facing my absolute rage? 10 people vanished because of him, taken by wasteland scavengers. Their survival is the only thing keeping him breathing tonight. Otherwise, he's done. He stood petrified, suffocating in my silence. He only sees metrics, unable to grasp that lives matter most. Outside is a cemetery with a sun that incinerates everything. Starvation rules here, making wheat more valuable than pure gold. That cargo saves thousands, yet a single life costs nothing. To a bean counter like Chen, soldiers were just payroll burdens. He prioritized harvests over brotherhood, a mistake I will fix. He needs a brutal awakening. I trade in souls, not items. I must prove that one heartbeat outweighs the entire world. Broken refugees crawl through the grime, hunting for any hope. They follow rumors that this sanctuary offers a real future. We reached 4,000 souls, finally becoming a regional power. Yet we're fragile. A legacy cannot be built on corpses. I need every person. I won't let 10 men vanish. If those raiders harmed a pet, I would burn them. Wake up, Bai. I want scouts on that ridge immediately. Give me the numbers, I spat at the coward groveling. Realizing I wasn't killing him, he finally gasped for air. He bolted to his station, praying for a saving miracle. His life depended entirely on the safety of those abandoned. Swapping spears for saws revealed a poisonous rot in leadership. It unmasked a lethal vulnerability in my own command structure. My obsession with building left our perimeter defenses to rust. I caught the failure moments before our dream became ash. A few more hours and we would be windblown debris. I fund this militia. It's pathetic if they fail now. After he left, I stood alone, fighting my internal darkness. My assistant mentioned school. I made him the teacher tonight. Reading my grim look, he vanished before I could blink. Alone at last, I synced the mind link. Identity: Zoe. Credits: 137,920. Pull: 4,313. Storage: 610. Progress: 1,000. First aid packs: 3. Stockpile: wheat, cat, canned vegetables, narcotics, seeds, hydration, and cement. Spin the wheel. The monitor glowed, cycling for new prizes. The interface had already categorized the rewards into 3 tiers. The loot was a joke: junkyard scrap, dying produce, or top-shelf artillery. Tucked underneath were rows of industrial-grade farm chemicals, bags of nitrogen and weed killer, but I wanted heavy weaponry. That crate teased me with repeating bows, armor, and that 8-bull ballista. Just seeing those tactical beauties made my heart skip a beat. If a carbine is a handgun, that 8-bull is a 50-cal sniper. That triple-strung beast fires iron rods that could gut a tank. Out in the dirt, the grunts call those bolts flying claymores. One hit buries itself in solid rock. It's a total fortress killer. Once those spikes hit, soldiers use them as ladders to climb. Its reach is terrifying. If you spot it, you're already dead. Period. Out of 12 slots, I had a 1 in 3 shot at steel. Please, give me the rifle, the vest, or that massive ballista. Any of those would turn my crew into an unstoppable wall. I smelled blood. Tomorrow I'd storm Hafing and wipe them out. I spun it. 12 icons blurred into a messy neon streak. The wheel became a glowing halo. I slammed the mental stop. It slowed to a painful crawl. The rifle passed, then the sword. The ballista ticked by. It hit the armor, but the needle drifted. My heart hammered as the ticker stalled right on the line. I held my breath and whispered, "That's the armor, right?" The cold bot voice chirped, prize locked. Wait, weed killer? You put garden poison in my stash? I yelled. Sick joke. If you had a face, I'd break it until you forgot yourself. I'd let you rot. The computer ignored me and showed the result. The proof was there. The needle landed a hair past the border. It missed the armor and stopped dead on the liquid toxin. This is rigged, I spat. You could have stopped that anywhere. That gear would have made us kings. Now I have chemical jugs. I wanted to scream. What use is pesticide in a wasteland? Seriously, even the rotten vegetables would be better than this trash. This is junk. Pingyong is currently choking under a massive drought. Every plant is already scorched. This fluid is completely useless. It's desert trash. Except for one thing. It's a category. One toxin. A lethal poison with no cure. One sip is a slow death. Suddenly, a dark, jagged idea sparked in my mind. A hellish plan formed. Hafing, you asked for this. Blame greed. As the plan locked in, a predatory growl left my throat. Within seconds, that growl turned into a manic, loud cackle. Back home, Bang sent scouts to watch the Hafing perimeter. Word of my total failure reached the rich Ye family downtown. Those wealthy vultures were likely laughing their heads off at me. Their rat, Yigawa, grinned at the boss. Mission accomplished, sir. That merchant is panicking like a headless chicken, Yin snickered. Why wouldn't he? He lost his whole fortune in grain harvests. This haul is pure gold. Spent weeks shredding their supply chain logs just to corner this market. Zoji's stocks hit rock bottom. Yigawan's dead-eyed stare felt like a final nail in our coffin. The whole world's hooked on that Zoji crop. Hell, even that lowlife Lord Wong couldn't stop raving about it. Same piece of work who financed January. He is the architect behind every disaster in my life. Rigged my sentencing just to watch them flay 50 lashes off my spine. Yi Wongmin. Born Yi Wongmin, but we knew him as Lord Wong. Time to burn his secrets down. I am going to watch them suffocate in this snare. Yigawa snapped the command to his lead guy. Being the lead fixer, Yi Enron didn't blink. He bolted the second the boss finished speaking. He tore out of there, faking a look of pure, unadulterated terror like a pro actor. He sprinted toward Shang to drop the bait. Hafing was a yellow-bellied runaway from Pingyong. He rotted in the wilderness until he tripped over these jagged, god-forsaken mountain ridges. Using raw violence, Hafing herded the local fugitives. They traded their dignity for rags and highway robbery. They made a living by sucking the life out of families living on the outskirts. That stronghold outside Pingyong houses a mini army of 300 cold-blooded killers. 20 guards watched my last haul, yet survival was a miracle. We barely slipped past those butchers. If Chief Chin deploys his boys now, he's just signing their death warrants in blood. After Bishong took the hook, he dismissed Yi Yin Rong with a confident, stupid grin. Yi Yin Rang exited, strolling out of that Pingyong Zoji shop like he didn't have a care. Once the street was clear, his expression soured. He spat on the pavement with total revulsion. Not a clue in his head, Bishong hurried to release a bird. That intel needed to hit Pingyong. By sunset, I had gripped the reins. I forced the guards into a brutal state of lockdown. A single screw-up was a one-way ticket to the grave. No excuses. Absolutely zero pity. Once the new law was clear, I commanded them to dump out every last sack of grain. We drenched the entire batch in wooden vats. However, those barrels weren't filled with harmless water. I spiked them with paraquat, an invisible, quiet killer. No smell, no tint, just straight-up lethality. In my former life, this served as heavy-duty pesticide. It is a dead ringer for fresh tap water. Nowadays, corporations mix in a revolting odor to stop folks from gulping it down by mistake. They use coloring and bitter scents as warnings. Folks expect their poison to actually look lethal. But my supply was the raw stuff, transparent as glass and totally devoid of any scent. No toxic fumes, no neon dyes, and zero alarms. Just high octane, concentrated death in a bottle. My team just stood by, figuring I was merely processing the rations for our upcoming trek. They assumed those vats were harmless until I jammed a handful down some stray chicken's gullet. The bird dropped instantly. That silence afterward was deafening. They finally understood the game I was playing. I seeded a lie about a colossal shipment of grain heading straight for the heart of Pingyong. The play. Bait Hafing's thugs into stealing it. My loyalists watched the gossip ignite the town. My vision finally dawned on them. The sun was blazing ideal for searing that toxin into every grain. That oppressive heat finished the job quickly, parching my deadly little crop in no time. Bishong's intel confirmed it. Blades are overrated. You don't need cold steel to pull off a slaughter. Those scavengers have 300 hitters. My village is expanding, but we are still severely outgunned. My whole security force barely scrapes together 400 souls on a good day. Pitting greenhorns against those freaks in an open war is suicide. I will not pay that price. This ghost-like toxin is way more surgical than some chaotic, bloody charge into the bayonets. It is just more efficient. I could not suppress a grin. The air itself felt heavy with anticipation. We sealed the final bag. Every single speck was a death warrant. I watched them sew burlap. My guys paused while staring at the stack. Not out of remorse, just the sheer gravity of the slaughter. My crew had zero patience left for those parasites. Seeing food go to waste turned their stomachs. They wanted blood. They were dying to breach those gates and torch the place. Brave souls, sure, but I wouldn't march them into a meat grinder. In this town, I'm the law. When I speak, the world stops. A lesser man would have let temper trigger a suicide mission. I glared them down. Those rations represent our children's survival. That cash was our lifeline. Those punks left me no choice. This rot required a cure. I told my boys, gear up. I felt their rage, but anger makes for a garbage strategist. 300 lowlifes were entrenched atop that ridge. A voice cut through. Chief, those yellow bellies don't rattle me. They're just bottom feeders playing outlaw because they're failures. Call the shot, barked young Wong, a kid forged in poverty. He was raised in the muck beneath that mountain's peak. Those vermin had wrecked his world once too often. As he went silent, a deafening cheer rattled the walls. I signaled for quiet. You're hard, but you're not cannon fodder. You're worth 10 of them apiece. I walked the line. Understand why? I pressed. The boy just stared, clueless. I got in Wong Ting's face. Is it sinking in yet? You're the shield for your blood, your brothers, and home. We live for them. And truthfully, for my sake too. I kept that quiet, but they felt the gravity. The terror of letting their families down finally hit home. Once it clicked, I said, that summit belongs to us. Cross us, and we'll drag you from whatever hole you've dug. I'm taking 50 shooters to reclaim our grain and bury the trash. The rest hold the fort. That 50 ignited a frenzy. The guys started scrapping to prove who was top dog. 7 days later, Sia Bao checked his basement's human cargo. He ordered his heavy, Du Yan Long, to end it. Show me the money, he spat. Where's the shipment? Let's just waste 'em and keep the grain. Du agreed. He rose, but a frantic lookout slammed through the doors. Boss, they're here. The supply truck finally arrived. Du Yan Long narrowed his eye. What's the body count? 6 guys, 2 trucks of grain, and a sled of booze. They smirked. Perfect timing, Sia chuckled. Another hour, they'd be seeing ghosts. Du Yan Long's single eye flashed with pure malice. They're soft. Let's seize the lot and jack up the rates. Slow down, Sia barked. Kill our word, and we kill the trade. You need a name if you want people to fold. Du shrugged. Fine. Let's trade these nobodies for the booze. He grabbed his goons and hauled the terrified locals out. A few weathered guys merged into the jagged cliffs just below the peak. They kept watch over carts of grain and bootleg liquor. I had personally handpicked every man for this fatal gamble. I dressed them up as peasants. Ting, the craftiest shadow on my books, took the lead. My directive was simple: zero resistance. A single slip-up would blow our cover and result in a bloodbath. If this failed, the prisoners were as good as dead, and my regional influence would vanish. Long's goons closed the circle. He shoved a blade against Ting's throat, his eyes leaking pure malice. You look familiar, kid. Have we crossed paths before? Ting faked a panic, recoiling from the cold steel. You have the memory of an absolute genius, sir, he trembled. Just a local from Wonga. I saw you torch our village last summer. Long recalled that massacre. He lowered his knife, puffing out his chest with a self-satisfied smirk. I am shocked a farmhand like you found work at the Zoji docks. Ting forced a shaky grin. Hard times, boss. I am just trying to survive. I follow orders so I can eat. The shipment is all here. This wagon is packed with the highest quality harvest. 1,000 pounds at least. Ting ripped a sack open, revealing the pristine white crop. Long inspected the goods with his solitary eye and let out a raspy chuckle. Your employer is not a total moron, he spat. He understands that cash keeps the devil away. Ting bowed like a total suck-up. The boss did not realize you held such power out here, he whispered. He was unaware this was your turf. He sent this premium hooch as a peace offering. The Black-Wind chieftain eyed the payoff with a massive dose of doubt. The prospect of alcohol fueled his avarice, but he wanted to push his luck further. You're full of it, you dog. Is this an ambush? Is the booze poisoned? Ting remained still. He refused to let a single hint of terror cross his expression. Confronting the butcher of Black-Wind, he just laughed it off. You have to be joking, Chief? If you're nervous, I'll take the first swig. Ting acted like a desperate drunk, popping the cork. The aroma of pungent spirits filled the air. As he raised the jug, Long lunged. He shoved the steel into Ting's neck. This high-end vintage is wasted on trash like you. A stray like you is not worth a single drop. Ting froze, perfectly portraying a weakling. Sir, I only meant to prove it was fine. I was just checking it for you. The rest of the crew played along perfectly. Exactly. We only wanted to show you it is safe. We were just looking out for you. Long kicked Ting back with the flat of his blade. Get lost and give your boss a message, he growled. Never attempt to hustle me again. Got it, mister. My master is in the village, but once he wraps up his business, he will deliver even more tributes to your gate. Long sheathed his knife, feeling invincible. He finally got the point. Tell him. Next time, I expect double the amount. Ting bowed like a lowly servant, maintaining the facade until the very end. Savor the ego trip, Ting mused. With 300 targets above us, the tempest is approaching. Long blew a sharp whistle to summon his crew from the thicket. His thugs hauled 10 villagers into view. Ting's group scrambled to collect the shattered hostages. They disappeared into the shadowy ridge paths in the blink of an eye. Long paid them no mind, shouting to relocate the goods. Ting guided the unit through the timber. He entered a secret canyon where my troops stood ready. That was our rendezvous point. The second the refugees spotted me, they fell to the earth, weeping hysterically. They sank into the grime, lowering their faces. Commander, you rescued us. We are your servants. We will do anything for you. I noticed a chilling, absolute devotion in their vacant stares. We would give our lives for you, they wailed. I raised them up, inspecting their battered bodies. I slapped some top-shelf salve onto their minor nicks. My crew geared up for the 72-hour hike back. Once that clock hits 0, we end them. The ones left called me their final authority. Those idiots celebrated while lugging our stolen gear. The kid badgered the boss for a bigger cut. The dealer folded. The guy is obviously loaded. The lead man stalked those barrels like a predator. Listen, kid, you're clueless about how pros play. You bleed them slow. Kill the host. You starve. Corner a rich man and he will buy assassins. A death squad? The whole room turned ice cold. That logic was flawless, leaving his brother dead silent. 100 silver was plenty. But he stayed greedy. Every card in these trees pays my private tax. The goons shared a sharp, nasty little grin. The boss let our hijacked harvest slip away. He checked the grain and served up jacked booze. The bourbon burned, masking a strange chemical sting. Feeling bulletproof, he ordered a massive mountain feast. Those fools missed that the party was their wake. That winter's bash was just a date with doom. At the base, my whole racket was going south. My right hand was hunting for any real intel. We ditched the mess and ghosted by dawn. Rivals moved in and instantly jacked up the vig. Rice hit 2 silver coins for a single bowl. I sat back as my scout gave the word. I asked if the competition funded the heat. He nodded. They were playing the helpful hero. That fake sweet act set off every alarm. We are enemies. Why the sudden hero act? The math held. Our rivals bankrolled those punks. It was rigged. The backstabbing went bone deep. My entire play lived or died on that juice. 72 hours later, my boys finally fed. I traveled light and barked the final orders. I told him, cash out and vanish right now. Local starvation was hitting the absolute red line. The hungry mob was ready to rush my position. We took the back trails up the mountainside. We hit the line and spotted the sentries. The watchmen wobbled, barely holding their feet. They had been decaying for 3 whole days. The toxin I slipped was finally finishing them. In the beginning, they just shook off the cramps like it was some common flu. They chalked the agony up to a rough night of drinking, but 48 hours in, they were halfway to the grave. Their bodies turned to stone as their internal fire began to flicker out. Taking a single step felt like a 10-mile hike, breaking the spirits of even the toughest drunks. By the 3rd day, a deathly, ashen pallor had completely washed out their faces. Their insides started to rot while a foul yellow slime stained their failing skin. It finally clicked for the 2 bosses that they had stepped into a living hell. Their soldiers were dropping left and right, but they realized the truth far too late to save anyone. Screams of rage tore through the silence as we charged the ridge, hunting for their leader. My 72-hour setup worked perfectly. Those lowlifes didn't have the strength to even stand up. I had 50 soldiers from Pingyong at my back as we smashed the front entrance to splinters. Adding 10 former inmates, our crew of 61 tore into that den of snakes. We ripped through their ranks like a pack of wolves hitting a defenseless flock. Enforcers like Wang Ting slaughtered them while the locals exacted their own bloody revenge. They drove their blades home, completely forgetting we were supposed to be the losing side. 300 thugs fell like sick birds, collapsing one by one regardless of their size. They were too physically ruined to handle even one swing from our steel. My team was made of survivors who had seen the worst, and their hunger for payback was raw. Reckoning day had come, and they fought with a savage, primal intensity. The head honchos heard the noise and just cackled, shouting curses at the sky. Just a few losers? The punk mocked, attempting to wake his dying soldiers. He shouted for a massacre, but his body quit before he could even raise a hand. That heavy iron broadsword of his, weighing 20 pounds, hit the dirt as his buddy frantically clawed for a dagger, terrified. The weapon he once handled with ease now felt like 1,000 pounds of lead. He couldn't even nudge it. His only option left was to bolt for his life. He just stood there, paralyzed, trapped by the violent rules of the game he played. Survive now, fight later, he whispered, thinking back to his days in the gutters. The 2 leaders held on to each other just to stay upright in the filth. They bolted for the rear door, but 12 of my men were already there. Sharp blades blocked their path, trapping the vermin inside their own hole. Wang Ting saw them running and lunged with his blade raised for the kill. He delivered a strike designed to shatter everything it hit. The steel carved into them, sending those trembling losers stumbling back. He kept the pressure on, driving his heel into their stomachs with pure malice. The 2 crime bosses crumpled like paper and slammed into the ground. While they begged for their lives, cold blades came to rest against their necks. Staring at the boy who wrecked them, the kid gasped, "You have got to be kidding." He had blown off the threats, but the killer look in Wang Ting's eyes was terrifyingly real. The act was up. The senior leader just squinted, wondering who this brat even was. Just some delivery boy from Wanja, the partner coughed through a spray of red. Wang Ting barked an order. "Chain them up and bring them to my boss." Bound like cattle, they were tossed at my toes as I asked, "So, who is the man?" I stood over him while he crawled, but he still talked trash with a sad ego. "By what right do you attack my turf?" he snarled, and I just laughed. "I spent 10 days hunting you down. Now, the bill's due. I waited through a living hell to find you. Yet you draw a total blank." The lamp finally caught my face. "Wait, that little street hawker? The very one," I hissed. "He never imagined a petty theft would end in a grave." "You absolute monster," Duong spat. "Spiking people's drinks? Have you no soul?" Every fiber of his being trembled with a raw, lethal fury. He tried to hawk a loogie at me, but it just leaked down his chin. Realizing the trap had shut, the boss forced a shaky, pathetic grin. "Master Zhao, please, spare us, and we will be your loyal hounds forever." I will give you anything. They had no clue my venom has no antidote. I was not about to bail out a coward who hunts children for sport. Still, I needed the name of the man who funded the warehouse hit. Want the cure? You can have it, but it will cost every cent you have. I described a phantom toxin so gruesome that even my own crew turned pale. They bought the lie completely, picturing their insides melting in slow motion. The leader snapped instantly. I will talk, just do not let me rot. The contract on your shipments was issued from Pingyong County. Old Man Yi set the trap. Exactly the snake I had suspected. Business is a blood sport, and the Ye family pulled every dirty string. They tipped off the hijackers just to watch my life's work go up in flames. They wanted to turn my reputation into the industry's biggest punchline. What was the bounty? I had to know the price of my own skin. The second in command folded the second his boss started singing to me. 20 bars of solid gold. Plus, we planned to flip your stock back. They were going to launder my own goods for a fast payday. I chuckled. The Yeas were playing for blood with that kind of cash. I already had over 100,000 silver pieces locked away. But actual gold? That is a whole different level of corporate malice. Imagine dropping 20 gold bricks just to crush a single rival shop. They overpaid, but that confession gave me all the leverage I required. I realized this hideout was likely stuffed with a decade of stolen loot. I slipped a tiny glass bottle from the inner fold of my sleeve. I dangled their only hope for survival right before their terrified faces. Their pupils dilated. You have been raiding for 10 years, I noted. Take me to the vault, and I might let you keep breathing. Facing the Reaper, their ego and gold became completely worthless. I would have found the stash eventually. They were just acting as my scouts. Surrendering the treasure was the only card they had left to play. The leader was already plotting a comeback, feeling like a criminal genius. He fantasized about a full recovery followed by cutting my throat. Those delusions of revenge were the only thing keeping his legs moving. He looked almost smug while leading me straight toward the jackpot. The entire crew watched our exit in a thick, haunting silence. They watched their so-called gods get dragged off like common street dogs. Once the leadership vanished, the rest of the pack simply dissolved. Steel hit the dirt as they caved. Every last man was in chains. We finally sealed the fate of the UG Hall stronghold. Ma and Du were walking ghosts, crawling toward the riches. The chamber was a grave of stolen jewels and cold gold. Each overflowing bin stank of rotten blood money. 2 massive crates held the price of every soul they destroyed. Recalling the families they slaughtered made my skin crawl. Then I spotted the only thing that actually mattered. Forget the gems. That dark gleam of iron was the real score. Steel stacked to the roof blades, bows, and piles of lethality. Hidden in the back were 3 sets of flawless heavy plate. My craftsmen were struggling, but this haul changed the game. Production had hit a wall, and Ma saw that fire in me. He started kissing my boots, begging me to check the wealth. He was desperate for a cure. I just wanted him to suffer. Ready to cooperate? I asked. He fell for it completely. He pounded his chest, spewing empty lies about his devotion. Until my end, he lied. I requested the total tally. I need a count for the antidote. They beamed immediately. Beneath that fake grin, Du had the cold stare of a shark. My lord, counting us, 318 people remain. Wong, move half the crew out. Leave these vermin behind. Execute the other 316. Leave nobody alive. Make it fast. The rest of you, haul this equipment. Steel sang as it was drawn. Ma's world just collapsed. He thought I was hiring. He realized I was his nightmare. You traitor, he shrieked. You gave your word to help us. Fueled by pure rage, they lunged at me. My soldiers neutralized them instantly. Keep them breathing for now. The capital needs a public show. I whispered like ice. I never promised anything. The infection is already in you. Salvation isn't coming. My men's boots kept them pinned down. Their arrogance vanished, replaced by the empty gaze of corpses. I would not waste one drop of the cure on these leeches. They were a cancer. For the rest, the end was swift. It wasn't about cruelty. I had already poisoned their food anyway. Living would have been pure agony. I was just being efficient. It was a mercy strike, and a lesson for the rookies. You only grow after you have looked death in the face. I would have played fair if they weren't such garbage. These cowards picked survival over integrity every single time. Humanity is predictable. The wailing outside was gut-wrenching. I felt a flicker of guilt until a scout led me below. What I witnessed in that hole killed my heart for good. I made the right call. 10 women were down there, shattered. Hollowed-out faces staring back, skin like parchment. I slipped into the shadows, whispering, "Easy does it. The law is here. This hellhole is going up in smoke. Your nightmare ends tonight." I kept my tone steady, yet they recoiled. To them, hope was just a cruel joke. Suddenly, Ting and Gulu slammed through the door. Ting looked like a walking corpse, his eyes fixed on a girl huddled on the ground, the rest of the world fading to gray. He lunged forward, brushing past me as he dropped to his knees. Cradling the fading girl, he gasped, "Chunai, eyes on me. Big brother is here." His trembling hands shook her gently. I stepped in, then saw her eyelashes twitch. She squinted, seeing him caked in the same grime as the devils who ruined them. A soul-shattering shriek filled the room. "Ting, did they catch you as well? Did they grab you?" "No, sweetie. We are leaving this place for good. Forgive me for being late." Looking at them, his hidden fire finally made sense. This boy had waded through a literal bloodbath just to reach his kin. Strange how he played the modest errand runner while harboring such a fierce spirit. A kid with that kind of steel in his spine is destined for greatness. Their reunion softened the room. The others relaxed. It was time to wrap this up. "You are okay now. He is on my side. No one touches you again, I swear." A trembling voice drifted from the darkness. "Are you truly the law?" A sobbing elder dragged himself toward me. "Officer, Heisen kept us like cattle. They broke us for a ransom no one could pay. We have nothing left. I have seen some bad seeds, but these bastards were straight-up demons." I glanced at Gulu. The filth out front? He tested his edge with a thumb. Slaughtered. 316 corpses, every last one of them. 40 sentries, 10 more digging graves. My tone went cold as January. "Leave the graves, grab the kerosene, let us turn this landfill into a bonfire. Bring some decent rations. These folks have been through pure hell." I ordered my men to steer clear of the tainted gear while helping them. Slowly, the survivors emerged from the suffocating gloom, one shattered soul at a time. They shuffled straight toward the pit filled with bodies in the rear. Those lowlifes were heaped together like stacks of worthless, decaying timber. The butcher shop scene nearly made me sick, but I kept my mask on. The survivors did not blink. They spat on the dead with a raw, concentrated fury. Pure vitriol had completely overridden any feeling of revulsion they might have had. A lookout sprinted over, gasping for air. "Boss, riders out front. They are pushing inside." My hackles went up. Was there another layer to this damn place? Had Balin tucked away even more than those 318 cutthroats? We were spent. My 60 boys had exhausted every last bit of juice during that massacre. One more fight would be our funeral. Then the lookout dropped a name. It is the Ye clan. 20 riders, with the old man leading the charge. They are hauling heavy crates. Likely the payoff for all this misery. The Ye's, right on cue. Great, let us close out this account. A snarl rose in my chest. These vipers had been poisoning my streets for decades. Yi Yen Ran was out front, acting as the family's primary enforcer. Trailing behind, 20 pack animals lugged the bribes and the bullion. 10 gold ingots to wash away the blood. They spotted us and turned to stone. Haying Fort was a graveyard now, echoing with ghosts of better days. The vibrant energy had vanished, replaced by a suffocating dead silence. Freshly spilled crimson drenched the sentries' collapse near the mountain entrance. Pure dread froze their blood, realizing there was no escaping the perimeter. Turning back meant certain execution. He desperately needed to find his nerve. He announced his arrival, watching the heavy iron gates groan apart. Yenron crossed the threshold, fighting the visible tremor in his fingers. Gripping the silver bar, he hoped currency could still purchase his freedom. Wearing a hollow grin, he questioned a gore-covered grunt about the carnage. My men didn't flinch. The guard ignored the silver entirely. "Zip it and walk," he barked, thrusting the traitor ahead. They marched to the central chamber, entering the belly of the beast. As the doors locked behind him, Yenron's last shred of optimism vanished. Hysteria clawed at his chest, knowing he was officially boxed in. He searched for the leader, seeing lethal threats in every dark corner. Looking down, he saw the earth saturated with dark, foul grime. A thug carelessly discarded a detached arm like it was common refuse. Reality struck these weren't soldiers. They were heartless, calculating executioners. Existence meant nothing here, turning this meeting into a death trap. He wondered if he was meeting an ally or visiting his tomb. The air crackled as 10 warriors brandished their gore-streaked steel. These bloodied behemoths seemed like nightmares pulled into the physical world. I orchestrated this slaughter specifically to shatter his resolve, and it did. Their complexions went white as sheets upon stepping into my throne room. Their legs buckled instantly, sending them sprawling onto the floor. From the gloom, I nodded, prompting a hulking enforcer to emerge. He seized Yenron by the neck and hauled him before me. The remaining associates scrambled closer. anticipating their final moments. Playing the madman, I barked out underground criminal jargon. "The hall? Which route?" I bellowed, leaving him paralyzed with shock. The cipher was foreign to him, and terror stole his voice. It dawned on him that the former commander was long gone. He could only tremble against the icy, unyielding stone tiles. I abandoned the act, crashing my hand down like a hammer. "I'm waiting. Why have you trespassed into my domain?" He flinched, stuttering his identity and his trade credentials. He claimed to be a supplier settling an ancient financial obligation. I chuckled, deriding the late boss's soft approach to commerce. "So, is the tribute here, or just empty excuses?" "It's here," he wheezed, gesturing for his subordinates to approach. An attendant fumbled a crimson chest, drawing a sharp hiss from Yenron. "Hand it here," Yenron growled, insulting the man's lack of coordination. Driven by sheer panic, he pushed the assistant toward me. The clerk approached as if he were stepping into an abyss. He dropped the crate and scrambled back into the shadows. Cowering behind his boss like a cornered rat, he dove for cover while I pried open the heavy, ornate chest. 10 gold bars shimmered inside, and a sudden jolt of pure avarice surged through my entire soul. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my face as cold and unreadable as a tombstone. I pounded the wood, screaming his rank until my throat felt like I had swallowed battery acid. The coward winced as my roar brought the entire room to a screeching, terrified halt. He looked about 2 seconds away from soaking his expensive trousers right then and there. I shoved the signed agreement in his face, the one for a 20 gold bar contract. But I only count 10. Did the mighty Yi clan suddenly hit a financial dead end? Or do you think I have gone too soft to take what belongs to me? The manager turned ghost white, stammering for his life. "Mercy, Chief Lee, have some pity. I gave 10 to the previous guy. This covers the remaining debt. Who the hell is Sia? I'm the one running this territory now. Did those first 10 bars ever hit my palm?" He stared blankly, then gave a pathetic little headshake. "If I didn't feel the weight, it doesn't count. You still owe me 10 more. He tried to argue the job was done, but raw terror clamped his jaw shut. I let him suffer while I pinned the fraud on him, then barked at my enforcer. "Sandoval, let's go!" The idiot just stood there, trying to look like a professional hitman. He was too busy playing tough guy for the terrified merchants shaking on the ground. A sharp kick to his shin broke the act, and he scrambled over, remembering his alias. "What is the word boss?" he muttered, his fake bravado vanishing into a quiet mumble. "That pile out back is still fresh. Go introduce our friends to the previous tenants. Show them the price of being cheap." I nodded toward the dark tree line. My crew got the hint, closing in on them like shadows in the moonlight. They hauled the merchants off while I ignored the grunts moving the crates. I was after the big fish, the director, his lapdog, and the rich brat. Behind the tents sat the old crew, a rotting, fly-blown mountain of human remains. A soft desk jockey like him had never seen anything bloodier than a paper cut. The heavy stench of metallic decay hit them like a physical blow, making them gag. My own gut twisted, but I had to play the villain, so I kept a cruel smirk plastered on. "Throw them on the pile," I barked. "Let them catch up with their old friends in that filth." My man didn't hesitate, shoving the 3 of them toward the wall of meat. They scrambled desperately, horrified to touch the cold, rubbery skin of the corpses. The manager tried to bolt, but a blade caught his throat before he cleared 2 steps. A bloody edge stopped him cold as my soldier gave him a look of pure killer intent. "Go on, maybe the dead can talk me out of those 10 missing gold bars. Produce the gold or the cash. 10 bars is a massive debt to leave unpaid. Selling off half the county's harvest wouldn't even cover the interest on a hit like this. A middleman couldn't approve that, only the man at the top had that kind of power. Trapped between a blade and a graveyard, he dragged himself forward. As he reached the pile, a stiff tumbled down and landed right at his feet. Glazed eyes stared back, and the boss finally lost his mind and his dignity. He collapsed in the mud, weeping and pleading for another chance. "We will pay, 10 bars, full price." I let the silence hang, then questioned their fate. He lay there face down, rambling about late payments, but I just cut him off. "Wrong. Remember that deli in Longman? Your buddy stiffed them on a bowl of dessert. I led my team through 1,000 miles of hellfire just to reach this godforsaken dump." Rang stood frozen, his features a sickening blur of manic giggles and pure terror. 1,000 miles for food, 300 lives for pennies. It was absolute madness. He cursed, bowing, that glutton whose craving for sugar just wiped out an entire fortress. The elder shook as I crowded the kid, whispering a brutal reality into his ear. "Pay attention, boy. Does that coward bowing still owe me for the treats he stole?" The kid glimpsed the pile of bodies, went ghostly pale, and hit the deck instantly. Rang finally realized that next to me, those savages looked like Sunday school children. Ignoring the boy, he agreed frantically. He must pay. He owes you everything. Bowing was nothing but a thief. Imagine betraying a legend over some worthless candy. The rat got what he deserved. Message received. I signaled my guys to drag them inside. In the lobby, the old man and his guard gasped like fish out of water. Back on the ridge, the copper scent of fresh blood had almost buried them alive. They were basically walking corpses. I let them catch their breath before getting to work. Manager, you are sharp. 15 gold bars for the trouble sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Rang nearly died. 15? Boss, it was 10 a minute ago. Why the sudden surge? I kicked my boots up. If you had paid the 10 earlier, we would be clean. Call that extra 5 a late fee. Do you have a problem with my math? Bowing's treat costs 300 lives. 5 gold bars for your life is a total steal. Right, manager? He nodded so hard his spine popped. It is a bargain, boss. You are a saint. So merciful, he wailed, looking like a ghost. It was pathetic. I felt the rage rising. Yi, I know you are just blowing smoke up my backside. I am no street punk. Your people really thought they could stiff me for free? Realizing his blunder, the old-timer began vibrating with a fresh, deeper dread. He went still, expecting me to order a severed head served on a platter. He flailed his arms, frantic to shut me up before I did him any favors. Stop! We can't! We haven't even covered the initial 10 gold bars yet. Staying alive this long is already more kindness than we could ever deserve. I sneered, squinting. My first time playing nice for once and you reject me. What is the play? Is your group trying to clown me in my own house? I leaned into the role, enjoying the drama while he rotted on the carpet. He was breaking, aware that my gifts usually end with a trip to the morgue. Cornered, the old man reached for his family's last desperate ace in the hole. Chief, surely you know the governor of Yonghe? As if I could forget that leech. I have had that name seared into my brain since the day I was born. I was exiled to this armpit of a town with a bounty on me because of him. The moment he said that title, the puzzle of the Yi family finally solved itself. Clearly, the governor was more than an ally. He was their ultimate protection. I knew that rat was a relative. My blood boiled, but my mask stayed solid. I acted dumb, cocking my head. Yonghe's governor? Never heard of him. Who is he? Seeing my blank stare, the elder brightened, thinking he finally had some leverage. His name is Yi Wangmin, he gloated, the pride of our entire bloodline. I was screaming with laughter internally. Every old debt was getting paid today. Oh, I will give him a present. Something he will feel until his last breath. So, you are kin to the big governor? I acted shocked to seal the trap. Watching him strut around with that unearned ego, he really thought a fancy title would keep me at bay. The reality is, my brain is just as sharp as my blade. I put in work while the world was dreaming. 2 years lost to philosophy books, no degree, no fancy office, just a mind like a razor. Eventually, I hit the wall and chose blood over hunger. My past left him looking like a ghost. He never expected a reader to carry heat, but I played along with the role he gave me. I moved closer, breathing the words. The only men I admire are the ones with those Ivy League degrees. I respect big shots like the governor or your cousin who actually survived those brutal state exams. Honestly, crossing paths with a heavy hitter from your bloodline today feels like destiny at work. He swallowed the lure whole, thinking the mere mention of his family tree had me shaking in my boots. He was likely plotting a way to stiff me on the 15 gold bars, but my voice cut through his fantasy. That is why I'm letting you go with a little souvenir. Boys, head down to the warehouse this second. Fetch that specific load of grain we brought in exactly 3 days back. Once he realized the gift wasn't a bullet to the brain, the guy finally let out a long, shaky breath. Old Man Lou caught my signal and played his part, sprinting off to locate that mountain of black market cargo. He knew I had a cold, calculated motive for being this generous with the stolen haul. I wanted the batch from 72 hours ago, no exceptions. Why that specific pile of grain? Simple, it was laced with the same lethal toxin the local precinct has been hunting down. He was oblivious, thank God. I just had to make sure it didn't contaminate our clean supplies. We tagged those poison bags with a sharp thorn. Moments later, Lou was back with the muscle. The crew dragged the heavy sacks to the center, stacking the deadly harvest right at his feet. Tell me, Manager Yi, isn't your family supposed to be the undisputed kings of the grain trade? This is the premium stuff. The same elite batch your rivals lost to that hijacker last week. My guys and I paid a little visit to those lowlifes at the fortress early this morning. We handled the situation and kept the goods. Now, I'm handing the whole inventory over to you. So, what's the holdup? Cough up those 15 gold bars and we can settle the score. He stared at the mountain over 700 kilograms of grain. It looked like a fortune spilled on the floor. It wasn't quite worth 15 gold bars, but losing his cash was better than losing his life. He forced a smile. I had him cornered. I yanked him up by his collar, getting uncomfortably close to his face. Usually, I'd keep a guy like you for ransom, but your family has such a sterling reputation. Because I respect your powerful bloodline so much, I'm gonna be a nice guy and walk you out. But he didn't feel lucky. He saw that this polite mask hid a predator far worse than a petty thief. He couldn't shake the image of the 300 men I'd just wiped out at that fortress. I sold the performance, but he could feel the underlying threat in every word. My face stayed like granite. You're free to go, but I'm sending one of my associates with you to keep things on track. He'll follow you to collect those 15 gold bars. Hey Lou, you up for a little trip? Go down there and secure our 15 gold bars. Lou understood this was the ultimate test of his loyalty. He thumped his chest and gave me a firm nod. Don't you worry about a thing, boss. I'll have it handled by tonight, but what if they try to get cute and stiff us? I cut him off before he could ruin the tension, keeping my eyes locked on the manager. I gave him a cold, hollow smile and quoted some old scripture. You're a man of status and integrity. I'm certain you wouldn't dream of letting my man leave without the payment. He looked into my soul. A cold sweat broke out as he began to fumble over his words. He finally understood true dread. It wasn't a thug with a blade he feared. It was a killer who actually used his mind. I was his personal nightmare. And the worst part? I was only just getting started with this life. I only had 2.5 years of schooling. Imagine if I'd finished, I'd be untouchable. I ditched my clothes and followed them like a shadow. Sleep wouldn't come while I trekked toward that massive estate. The boss sat there, tracking every delivery truck pulling in. At first, the old man seemed eerily composed. Then the news hit I'd made off with $15,000. Caught. He whistled for his hitters to collect in blood. He signed my death warrant right from his office chair. His move? Wipe out every single person in my circle. Joke's on him. His top soldier is a complete nobody. That pencil pusher couldn't even manage a two-man stick-up. How did a bottom feeder like me rally an entire army? Simple. The government collapsed and left us for dead. We were just phantoms living in a dying metropolis. When the law vanished, I was the one feeding everyone. I patched up the wreckage and earned their total loyalty. I signed the checks now. This whole town is mine. People listen to me because the high and mighty failed them. He lost his mind, shattering his fine china against the wall. He was trembling while his right-hand man stood paralyzed. He interrogated his lookouts until their stories fell apart. The evidence proved his own blood hadn't betrayed him. Stealing is peanuts. This level of disrespect means war. Talking back gets you killed, so I went completely dark. He bet the entire house on taking down the heavy hitters. He's flat, broke, and drowning in debt. It's over. A final, pitch-black plan started forming in his head. Is that professional trigger puller actually on the rival's payroll? I stalled, terrified of the massacre about to unfold. If so, those brokers are packing some serious heat. He's got 300 confirmed kills. I checked the facts. The big boss is making a run for it before sunrise. Maybe those street soldiers aren't really on his side. The old man finally had to swallow the bitter truth. Who the hell catches a body over a cheap clay jar? Still, those corpses in the hills were very real. He sent his kin to train, but they totally failed. The kid came back as a shivering, nervous wreck. Now he's just a weeping, broken mess in the dirt. He's begging for scraps. Who's going to cover his tabs? The Reaper is on his way to close our accounts. Never corner a predator who has nothing left to lose. Cut the check. Our lives are worth more than pride. I'm going to use his reputation to drain every vault. They're going to bleed, but I'll find fresh targets. The competition is buried. This city belongs to me. The Yi cartel owns every soul here, but their clock is ticking. No more hiding in the dark or staging sob stories for the locals. Those scavengers will bleed this city dry to find my 15 stolen bricks. At our safe house, Golu hovered by the exit, sipping lukewarm tea. The crew got ghosted in the vault. My only order was total vigilance. Galu had to move. No gold meant we triggered the contingency plan. The crop is laced. The moment they bite, they are walking corpses. I will return shortly simply to shove their remains into the dirt. Debts get settled. Suddenly, Galu's knuckles whitened around his porcelain mug. He coiled to strike when a geezer stepped from the midnight shadows. The man bowed, hailing him as the mythic mountain boss, Sandabao. Yugwa flashed a slimy grin, stalling, but Golu was not into small talk. He shut him down, demanding the 15 gold bars owed to our gang. Hand it over, Golu barked while the old man barred the door. Easy now. We have the goods, Yugwa chirped, signaling for the reveal. A gorgeous woman emerged, clutching a crimson case like a sacred relic. Golu recalled my rule. A pretty face is a deadly venomous snare. He snatched the case, verified the 15 bars, and headed for the exit. Weighted down by bullion, he pivoted to the door to disappear forever. Yugwa persisted, warning that the ridge path would be his graveyard tonight. He offered booze and a banquet, hoping to loosen Golu's tongue. But I raised him with a discipline no amount of bourbon could crack. A couple of shots meant zero to him. He never even blinked. He dropped a cold refusal and vanished into the midnight chill. The dame and the bullion were bait designed to snag a loose secret. Golu's icy exit left the old man standing solo in a silent cemetery. He finally saw that he had zero clue what demon he was taunting.